That story takes place in a rural Oklahoma town. Last month, 7 bodies were found on the property of a convicted sex offender, including his own. This week, autopsy reports were released to the public.
In the small, unassuming town of Henrietta, Oklahoma, a nightmare unfolded that no one could have predicted. A family's trust in a man with a dark past triggered a chain of events that would end in unspeakable tragedy. Jesse McFadden, a convicted rapist with a history of violent offenses, was allowed to be a father figure to 3 teenagers. But on the day he was due in court, he vanished. When the authorities arrived at his home, they made a chilling discovery, which you'll uncover later in this video. This case left a lasting mark on the town and raised troubling questions about how such a tragedy could have happened. This incident took place in Henrietta, Oklahoma, and it all started with Holly McFadden. She was a beautiful 35-year-old mother of 3 teenagers with 2 daughters, Tiffany, who was just 13, and Riley Allen, who was 17. She also had a son, Michael Mayo, who was 15. The children had different biological fathers, but they all called Tiffany's father Joe, their dad. Joe played a crucial role in their lives. He was their support. He and Holly had been married for 13 years before their divorce, and he had been a constant presence in Riley's life since she was just a year old. Even after their marriage ended, Joe's love for the children never changed. He treated them as if they were his own, and even wanted to adopt Michael and Riley. But then everything shifted. On May 26, 2022, Holly remarried. She married a man named Jesse McFadden, and tragically, this is where their story took a dark and unexpected turn. From the outside, their life appeared to be a fairy tale with a happy marriage and a blended family living in harmony. However, no one was prepared for the horrifying truth about Jesse that would emerge just a year after they married. At this point, it's unclear whether Holly knew about his past before their marriage. What we do know is that her mother found out about Jesse's troubling history months before the tragedy. Jesse McFadden was born in Kansas and dropped out of school after 9th grade. He was living in McAlester when he first ran into legal trouble for underage beer possession. In 2002, he admitted to stealing over $80,000 from his grandfather and pleaded guilty to a felony charge of grand larceny. The following year, he was caught twice for driving with a suspended license, and in that same year, Jesse was charged and arrested for attacking a 17-year-old girl at knife point with very sexual motives. He was convicted of this crime and sentenced to 20 years in prison, and while in prison, Jesse got caught with a cell phone for the first time. In 2013, a woman had reported that he'd been texting her with sexual messages for 3 months. In 2016, Jesse was caught with a cell phone again. When officers confiscated the phone, they discovered explicit conversations, videos and photos involving a 16-year-old girl named Caitlin. It was Caitlin's grandfather who had reported their interactions to prison officials. According to an affidavit from a Department of Corrections investigator, Jesse was accused of sending graphic content to Caitlin and engaging in manipulative behavior. Jesse had to serve 85% of his prison sentence, but he received good evaluations for his work and education. This made him eligible for early release. However, he got into trouble for having a contraband cell phone, which took away his chance for early release. It is confusing why he was allowed to get out early after breaking rules that had put him in prison before. After his release in October 2020, Jesse was required to check in with the sheriff's office every 90 days, but he didn't follow these rules. People like him were not supposed to go near places where children gather, like schools or sports events, but he ignored those restrictions. The delay allowed Jesse to get married and become a stepfather to Holly's 3 kids. Joe and Holly had a rule that anyone around their kids needed a background check. Holly assured Joe that Jesse had passed the check before the trial. It's unclear if Holly missed Jesse's bad behavior or chose to ignore it. While they waited for the trial in Caitlin's case, tragic events occurred during the last weekend of April 2023. Ivy Webster and Brittany Brewer, along with some other girls, were invited to Tiffany's house, where Jesse was staying. They planned to have fun and do typical teenage activities. On Saturday, around noon, Jesse picked up girls to take the girls shopping and then to a family entertainment center in Tulsa. Ivy kept her mum updated through Snapchat, but by the next morning, something felt wrong. Ivy and Brittany's parents received texts from their daughters saying they were going to Jesse's family property in McAllister. By Monday, no one had seen the girls. Their parents grew worried and reported them missing. Jesse was supposed to be in court that same Monday, but he never showed up. Police waited outside his property for a warrant. When they finally got one, they discovered 7 bodies on Jesse's property. The shock of finding Jesse among the dead was just the start as they began to identify the other 6 victims, revealing a tragic situation. Jesse's wife Holly, her 3 children Tiffany, Michael and Riley, and close family friends Ivy and Brittany were all tragically killed, each shot in the head with a 9mm pistol.
Holly McFadden suffered 3 gunshot wounds to the head, and Jesse McFadden appears to have shot himself in the head.
Holly suffered 3 gunshot wounds and Jesse appears to have taken his own life afterward. The bodies were found in 2 separate areas on the property. Ivy, Brittany and Riley were discovered about a quarter mile from the house, while the others were in a wooded area. This spread suggested that they might have been trying to escape or had been moved after death. Investigators quickly concluded that Jesse killed his family and friends before taking his own life. The reason for these horrific actions remains unclear, though unsettling clues suggest he was hiding secrets. Jesse was scheduled to go to trial the day after the bodies were found, raising questions about whether he committed these acts to prevent his family from learning about his crimes. The night before, Caitlin received disturbing messages from Jesse, who blamed her for not dropping the charges against him. He told her he had rebuilt his life and didn't want to return to prison, adding, "This is all on you for continuing this."
Horrible. It makes you feel terrible, like you're not even human.
Bab says her case was set to start trial on Monday.
I was prepared and I was ready. I've been ready for 6 years.
But McFadden was a no-show and the gruesome news broke.
It was terrible. Especially when it's something that could have been prevented and it never should have happened.
Caitlin felt uncomfortable and took a screenshot of the message to share with the prosecutor. The next day, she learned Jesse's trial had been delayed due to an issue with his phone, but soon after she got a call about a missing persons report involving Jesse and others. Fearing he might come after her, she rented a nearby Airbnb for safety. Crystal Smith, another of Jesse's past victims, also shared her pain upon hearing the news. She recalled her own traumatic experience with Jesse when she was 16 and expressed frustration that he had been released despite her warnings. The murders brought back her fears and anger over his previous actions. Caitlin, feeling overwhelmed with grief and guilt, shared her devastation, saying, "It makes you feel terrible, like you're not even human."
I was prepared and I was ready. I've been ready for 6 years.
She had been ready to face Jesse in court after 6 years of waiting, only to learn of the tragedy. Ivy and Brittany's parents were equally shocked, as they had no idea of Jesse's dark past. They thought the weekend sleepover was normal. Brittany's dad, Nathan Brewer, described Jesse as a nice guy. Ivy's mum, Ashley Webster, said their families had been friends since late 2020 and that she was unaware of Jesse's history. She saw Tiffany as another child in their family and said that Ivy and Tiffany were best friends. Holly's mother, Jeanette Mayo, was also shocked. She revealed that Jesse had deceived Holly with his charm and had tight control over her, even tracking the kids' cell phones.
Like, I was probably the most outspoken family member about Jesse being a registered sex offender. And I would say, do this, Jan, say this. And anytime we tried to approach the situation, she was punished. She was shut down. She was constantly on eggshells. She wouldn't be able to talk to her children. So she had to keep a balance. She had to accept things if she wanted to keep an eye on the grandkids and talk to her daughter.
Jeanette and her husband were the first to learn about Jesse's past. Months before the murders, Jeanette's husband looked up a co-worker's record and found Jesse's by accident. They confronted Holly, who then asked Jesse about it. Jesse reportedly hired someone to convince Holly his past charges were misunderstandings. Holly was convinced he had passed a background check, despite family concerns. Jeanette tried to talk about Jesse's background but was shut down. Holly had to keep the peace to stay close to her kids and grandkids. After the tragic murders, family members and an investigator went to the house where their loved ones had stayed. They found beds equipped with restraints and chains. Disturbing items were scattered around, including restraining devices, drug paraphernalia, and witchcraft books. Investigators collected evidence, such as cell phones, computers, and dirty bed sheets. One family found their daughter's phone, plus several laptops and disturbing items hidden in a closet. Over 2 weeks, officials seized 2 hard drives, 9 cell phones, fingerprints, and receipts.
Laptops, sex and bondage devices. In 2 weeks, officials have collected at least 2 hard drives, 9 cell phones, palm and fingerprints from McFadden's truck, and various purchase receipts. The storage unit under McFadden's wife's name has also been searched.
They also searched a storage unit in McFadden's wife's name.
The police to
When
report
the family
this,
tried to
they
report this
shockingly
to the
told them
police,
to leave the
they were
property.
told to leave the property.
Then a notebook came to light,
They also found
filled
a
with
notebook
names,
with names,
including the 6 people
the
Jesse had
6
murdered.
victims Jesse
Given what
had
was
murdered.
found in that house,
The house's awful state made them wonder if Holly knew about Jesse's dark actions. Many are shocked the police let the family in before the scene was fully cleared, raising concerns about possible negligence. In a heartbreaking interview, Ivy's parents said they believe Jesse impersonated Ivy in a message they got on Sunday morning
after
she had already been killed. Ivy's mom, Ashley, shared that the last text she received felt strange and out of character.
But
the text said Ivy was going to McAllister and would be home later, but now people believe Jesse sent that message. Ivy was likely already missing when it was sent. Ashley described Ivy as a wonderful kid who loved animals, people, and softball. Ivy had a big heart and cared for everyone. More than anything, Ivy was Ashley's best friend. She always sent thoughtful texts, messaging before and after events, and never forgetting to say, "I love you." When Ivy texted about going swimming in McAllister, her words felt different, but Ashley thought she was just in a rush. Brittany's father, Nathan, spoke with tears about his daughter, her outgoing personality, and her dreams of becoming a teacher or a vet. Brittany had been chosen as Miss July in a local pageant, part of a national competition in Tulsa. She and her family were excited, and her father is heartbroken she won't get to experience it or anything else. Jeanette, who lost 4 family members, talked about her daughter Holly, who was a loving and protective mother. Jeanette felt Jesse didn't deserve an easy end. He should face true justice and suffering for his actions. Even people in prison who knew him spoke up about how disturbed he was. James Fleming, who shared a cell with Jesse at Joseph Harp Correctional Center in 2015, described Jesse as highly focused on sex. Their conversations often took unsettling turns, and Fleming said that if he hadn't been strong, mentally and physically, Jesse might have tried to harm him too. Though Jesse McFadden tried to appear as a family man, disturbing items like hand restraints and explicit books were found in his home. Some believe Holly, his wife, might have been manipulated into thinking his behavior was normal. This case serves as a reminder: people can hide dark secrets, and we should stay alert.